The minute the waiter lowered the bread basket onto the table, I caught the shift in my sister's posture. Mia leaned toward her new boyfriend with that sugary smile she always wore right before she tried to cut me down. I felt it, like a low vibration under the tablecloth, her favorite pre-attack ritual. The restaurant was loud, full of clinking glasses and weekend chatter, but her voice always had this strange power. It sliced through noise like a spotlight cutting through smoke. I didn't lift my head. I didn't flinch. I simply crossed my legs and tapped my heel on the floor, keeping my face calm even though my heartbeat thudded unevenly in my chest. This was routine. Mia loved turning me into her warm-up joke whenever she had a new audience. And tonight she was practically glowing beside her boyfriend, Caleb Warren, who looked like he had wandered into the wrong movie. He sat tall, relaxed shoulders, sandy blonde hair slightly messy, and a face too gentle for my sister's brand of theatrics. They'd only been dating about a month, so I doubted he had any idea what he had signed up for. Mom pretended to study her soda like it held hidden answers. Dad unfolded his napkin with exaggerated focus. Everyone at the table felt the tension, but as usual, no one acknowledged it. I swallowed my frustration quietly. I had spent years surviving these moments, Mia's subtle digs, her need to shine brighter by dimming me. I thought tonight would be no different. I was wrong. The menus were still in our hands when she launched her opening strike. "So, Caleb," she said, leaning back so her voice carried, "if you want to avoid awkwardness, just don't ask my sister about her career." Heat rose to my cheeks, but my expression stayed flat. "Here it comes." "It's too embarrassing," she added with a dramatic whisper loud enough to reach the next table. Caleb blinked, puzzled, glancing between us. Mom shifted in her seat. Dad busied himself with aligning the forks. The sting that used to hit me like a punch now barely scratched the surface. I wasn't the same fragile version of myself anymore. Over the years, I had quietly built something real, something solid, but I had never bragged about it. Not even once. Especially not in front of my family. Because what would have been the point? To them, success only counted when Mia had it. I raised my water glass and took a slow sip. "It's fine," I said softly. "I'm used to it." Mia snorted. "Well, you never really told us what you're doing these days. We all figured you were still—" She waved her hand lazily. "You know, figuring life out." Her words hit the table like ice cubes. The truth? I owned a small but rapidly growing tech consulting firm in Seattle. I worked with startups and medium-sized companies to organize their operations and streamline their onboarding systems. It wasn't flashy, but it was sustainable, respected, and, most importantly, mine. Built on sleepless nights, endless research, and grit, but I'd never volunteered this information. My parents didn't understand the tech world, and Mia liked pretending my accomplishments were tiny compared to hers. So I simply smiled. "Ask whatever you want." Before she could double down, Caleb cleared his throat. "Actually," he said gently, "I didn't want to talk about work tonight." Mia tapped his arm lightly. "Babe, don't make her uncomfortable." He looked at her, really looked at her, with a strange stillness in his eyes. Then he turned back to me, and something shifted. Respect. Recognition. Something sharper. "Actually," he said slowly, "I think she might make you uncomfortable." Mia froze. The air around the table thinned. Even the waiter passing behind us slowed down. I stared at Caleb, confused. He continued, "I think the real question isn't what she does for a living." His gaze flicked briefly toward Mia. "It's whether I should be the one to tell your family who signed my contract this morning." My breath caught, not from panic, from shock. He wasn't supposed to say that. Mom's hand stilled on her glass. Dad's fork froze midair. Mia's face went blank, like her mind had suddenly crashed. Caleb leaned forward slightly. "The company that brought me on for their onboarding overhaul, the one with the lightning bolt logo?" He nodded toward me. "She owns it. I met her officially for the first time today." Silence swallowed the entire table. I folded my napkin slowly, trying to steady the mix of adrenaline and disbelief rushing through me. Mia blinked hard, then scoffed. "No, she just works there. She probably just does admin or something." Caleb shook his head. "No, I saw the paperwork. She's the founder. She's the CEO." My sister's mouth opened and closed again like she'd forgotten how talking worked. Dad finally croaked, "You own a company?" I nodded politely. Yes, Dad. Mom stared at Caleb. And she really hired you? He nodded. As of this morning. Mia's composure shattered. That doesn't mean anything, she insisted. She's successful, Caleb cut in calmly. Independent, capable. The firmness in his tone made Mia sit back as if someone had pushed her. I felt my pulse steadying, settling into a warm, controlled rhythm. Mia glared. So you're taking her side now? I'm taking the side of truth, he said simply. The waiter arrived with appetizers, but no one touched them. Mia leaned toward me, voice sharp enough to slice through bone. You embarrassed me. I took a quiet breath. There it was, the root of everything. Not concern, not confusion, pride. I didn't embarrass you, I said evenly. You embarrassed yourself. Her head snapped toward me. You judged me before asking. You assumed I was failing. And you tried to make me look small in front of someone you barely know. A tremor of adrenaline moved through my chest, but I didn't let it show. For once, I said quietly, you felt what I've felt for years. For the first time in my life, Mia didn't have a comeback. Caleb exhaled. She didn't do anything wrong, he murmured. You did. Mom looked down. Dad fidgeted. The tension thickened. I stood, picking up my purse. I should go, early meeting tomorrow. Caleb rose immediately. I'll walk you out. Mia shot him a murderous look. Why? She's fine. He ignored her. As we walked through the restaurant, I felt Mia's fury burning into my back. Good. Let her sit in it. At the door, Caleb said softly, Your work is impressive. I didn't know you were connected to all that. I smiled slightly. Thank you. But inside, another thought formed, clear, sharp, certain. Tonight wasn't the finale. It was only the beginning of my revenge. The cold air outside the restaurant swept around me like it had been waiting at the door for an excuse to rush in. I pulled my coat tighter and exhaled slowly, letting the chill steady me. Behind me, the restaurant noise blurred into a distant hum. Silverware clinking, people laughing, glasses being set down. All of it felt like a life happening somewhere else, to someone else. Not to me. Caleb stepped out beside me, letting the door swing shut. He didn't speak at first. He just stood there, hands in the pockets of his coat, watching the traffic pass under streetlights that flickered like broken metronomes. You handled that with a lot more grace than anyone at that table deserved, he finally said. A faint smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. Years of training. He chuckled under his breath. Your sister? She's intense. That's a gentle word for it. A car honked in the distance. A couple rushed past us, arguing about something trivial but passionate, their voices echoing off the brick buildings lining the sidewalk. For a brief moment, I envied them. The simplicity of arguing about takeout or forgotten keys instead of years of being undermined by your own family. Caleb leaned against the wall. I'm sorry for what happened back there. You didn't do anything wrong. No, he said softly. But I provoked her. I didn't mean to cause a scene. I shook my head. You didn't provoke her. You told the truth. Truth tends to feel like provocation to people who survive on lies. He blinked, letting the words sink in. You're stronger than you look. I had to be. For a moment, a quiet understanding formed between us. Unexpected, gentle, free of judgment. It felt strange. New. Almost dangerous. Then, just as I took a breath, the restaurant doors swung open again. Mia. Her heels clicked violently against the pavement as she marched toward us, her face a tight mask of fury. Her lipstick looked smudged, like she'd pressed her lips together too hard. Mom followed a few steps behind her, wringing her fingers, and Dad hovered near the doorway looking like he wanted to disappear into his coat. Wonderful, the whole audience. What exactly was that? Mia demanded, pointing at Caleb as if he were a faulty appliance. Why did you humiliate me? I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Humiliate you? Mia, you tried to humiliate me in front of your boyfriend. She scoffed. You're being dramatic. Caleb crossed his arms. She didn't start anything. You stay out of this, Mia snapped. No, he said calmly, I won't. Mia's jaw tightened. You're defending her? Seriously? Caleb's voice was steady. I'm defending the person who wasn't being cruel for sport. Mom stepped forward timidly. Girls, maybe we should all… Mia, I interrupted, keeping my voice level. For once, take responsibility. She turned toward me, eyes burning. You think you're better than me now? Just because you own some tiny little business? I inhaled deeply. It's not tiny. Well, it's nothing compared to what I'm doing, she snapped. You hiding your job from us was manipulative. You embarrassed me in front of my boyfriend. I didn't say a word. I raised my voice for the first time that night. You mocked me. You lied about me. You tried to belittle me like you always do. And when you found out you were wrong, you blamed me instead of congratulating me. She stared at me like she couldn't believe I had dared to speak back. I wasn't wrong, she insisted weakly. I just didn't know. You didn't care enough to know, I corrected. Dad stepped between us. All right, that's enough. We're not doing this on the sidewalk. No, Dad, I said, steadying my breath. I'm done pretending. I'm done letting her talk down to me. He gave me a stern look. You're overreacting. The words hit me harder than they should have. Overreacting, always overreacting, overly sensitive, overly fragile, overly dramatic. Funny how people only call you dramatic when it's convenient for them. I straightened my back. This isn't an overreaction, this is a boundary. Mia rolled her eyes. Oh, please. A boundary, I repeated, sharper this time, as in, you don't get to insult me anymore and expect silence in return. She took a step closer. You think you're some kind of authority now because you signed one contract with Caleb's company? Please, you're still the same. Stop, Caleb said abruptly, stepping between us. Don't finish that sentence. Mia blinked at him. Are you seriously taking her side over mine? He exhaled. I'm taking the side of the person who acted like an adult tonight. For a moment, the world seemed to stop around us. The passing cars blurred. The streetlights flickered. Even the cold felt suspended in the air. Then Mia laughed, a low, bitter, humorless sound. You're unbelievable, she said to him. You don't even know her. I know enough, he answered. That shook her. I saw it, the slight widening of her eyes, the way her expression faltered. For the first time in a long time, she looked unsure. And that uncertainty terrified her. Mom touched her arm. Honey, maybe we should go home. Mia yanked her arm away. No, I'm not leaving until she apologizes. I blinked. Apologize for what? For making me look stupid. You did that yourself, I said quietly. Her nostrils flared. You always ruin everything. No, I corrected. You ruin everything the minute someone else gets attention you think belongs to you. She froze. I continued, my voice calm, even, almost cold. You want everyone to orbit around you like you're the sun. But here's the truth. Your brightness only comes from blocking someone else's light. Caleb inhaled sharply. Mom looked like she was going to cry. Dad rubbed his forehead. And Mia broke. Her face crumpled, not with tears, but with anger. Pure, shaking fury. Fine, she hissed. If you want to act like you're better than me, go ahead. Just don't blame me when the truth comes out. I frowned. What truth? She lifted her chin, eyes burning. You think you're untouchable? You think you're the golden child now? Watch what happens when people see what you're really like. A strange stillness spread through me. Those words weren't just meant to hurt, they were meant to threaten. I narrowed my eyes. What are you planning, Mia? She didn't answer. She simply smirked, turned sharply on her heel, and walked toward the parking lot with Mom hurrying after her. Dad muttered, We'll talk later, then followed them, leaving me and Caleb alone again in the cold. He sighed. Wow. Yeah. Did she mean that? About the truth? I slipped my hands into my coat pockets. With Mia, that could mean anything. We stood silently for a moment. Then he said, You know this isn't over, right? I nodded slowly. I know. Inside my chest, something dark and sharp began to settle. Not fear, not anger. Preparation. Because Mia wasn't just upset. She was plotting. And if she wanted a war, then I'd give her one.
The night
A
after
war
that
she'd never
confrontation in the kitchen, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the soft glow from my phone screen painting faint blue lines across my room. My body felt heavy, but my mind wouldn't stop replaying everything: Mom's stiff posture, Dad's rigid silence, Emma's smug glance. And that sentence that cut deeper than I expected. No one asked you to get involved. Maybe they didn't, but they should have, because staying silent had turned all of us into strangers who happened to share a surname. Around 3 a.m., I finally sat up, swung my legs off the bed, and grabbed my laptop. If they didn't want to face the truth, I would gather the kind of truth that couldn't be argued with. For years, Emma had relied on the fact that no one questioned her version of events. She repeated lies until they became the family's script. but I wasn't a kid anymore. And I wasn't afraid. The strategy, I started with the simplest thing, the emails Dad had forwarded to me months ago. They documented every payment he had made on Emma's behalf, her rent, her credit card bills, her car insurance. Even the designer purse she insisted was a gift from her own savings. The list stretched back almost 5 years. Line after line, a pattern emerged. Emma demanded, Dad provided, Mom defended, and I disappeared into the wallpaper. After an hour, I organized the documents into labeled folders, one for rent, one for utilities, one for medical, one for the money. Dad had quietly borrowed from his retirement fund to cover Emma's emergency, and then I created a 5th folder titled Impact on Family. That one hit the hardest. Photos of Mom crying in the car after arguments, voicemails from Dad apologizing for yelling, screenshots of Emma lashing out at me for things I didn't even do. I stared at the screen for a long time before finally hitting save. The recording I didn't expect. By dawn, I was exhausted but wired. I decided to go downstairs for coffee. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that only happens when anger hasn't been resolved, just buried. As I passed the living room, I heard whispers. Mom's voice, Dad's voice, both low, strained. I froze, leaning slightly against the wall. I don't know how to fix this, Mom whispered. She sounded smaller than I had ever heard her. Dad exhaled shakily. We broke both of them, you know? Emma with too much attention. Harper with too little. That was the first time I'd ever heard him say it aloud. A simple admission. A simple truth. Mom sniffled. She's right, though. We always assumed Harper was fine. She never asked for anything. That doesn't mean she didn't need anything, Dad murmured. For a moment, I forgot to breathe. Then, without planning to, I stepped forward. Mom turned sharply, startled. Dad straightened. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, I said softly. But you're right. I wasn't fine. I just didn't know how to say it before. Mom's face crumpled. Dad's eyes dropped. The room felt fragile, like one wrong word would make everything collapse again. But instead of breaking, something shifted. A different kind of conversation. We talked, really talked. For the first time in years. I told them how I felt invisible growing up, how Emma's problems filled every room, how being the responsible one had become a cage rather than a compliment. Dad listened with his jaw clenched the entire time, but his eyes softened at the edges. Mom wiped tears with the sleeve of her sweater. Then Dad said something that shocked me. Your sister, she's counting on us not changing. She thinks the dynamic is permanent. Mom nodded weakly. But we need to change. We can't go on like this. I pulled out my laptop and showed them the folders. The receipts. The pattern. Their silence was deep, not guilty, not defensive, just seeing clearly for the first time. Mom whispered, We didn't realize it was this bad. Dad shook his head. I knew it was a lot, but I didn't want to upset her. And you didn't worry about upsetting me? I asked before I could stop myself. His eyes flicked up, and the look in them wasn't anger, it was shame. No, he said. I didn't, and I'm sorry. It wasn't a perfect apology. It wasn't poetic or cinematic, but it was real. The confrontation that ended the cycle. Later that afternoon, Emma arrived unannounced, like she always did, storming into the house with her dramatic flair, complaining about the grocery store running out of her favorite oat milk. I didn't even get a chance to speak before Dad raised his hand. Sit down, he told her. His tone wasn't angry, it was final. Emma blinked, clearly thrown off. Mom sat beside him. I sat across from them. Emma looked around, sensing the shift like an animal smelling smoke. What's this about? She finally asked, narrowing her eyes at me. It's about what's been happening for years, Dad said. Mom pulled out the papers I organized. One by one. Emma's face changed color, cycling through confusion, irritation, denial. This is out of context, she snapped. No, Mom said calmly. This is the context. Emma's mouth opened and closed like she was searching for a stronger argument, but she found none. Maybe for the first time in her life, the spotlight wasn't protecting her. Dad leaned back. Emma, we love you, but we cannot keep enabling you. We will not treat Harper like she's invisible anymore. My heart thudded so loudly I felt it in my throat. Emma swallowed hard. So what? You're choosing her? Dad didn't flinch. We're choosing balance. Something we should have done a long time ago. Mom nodded. You need to start standing on your own feet. Emma looked at me then, really looked. Not with superiority or dismissal, but with a kind of shock that bordered on fear. Like she was seeing me for the first time. A new kind of ending. She didn't apologize. She didn't hug me. She didn't suddenly become a changed person, but she stayed quiet. And that silence was the beginning of something new. Later that evening, as I stood on the porch watching the sun dip into the horizon, Dad came up beside me. "We can't fix the past," he said. "But we can fix now." I nodded. "That's enough." And for the first time in years, it finally felt true.